give a round of applause for Neo as we welcome him.
Hello, everybody. As she said, my name is Neo. I am from a company called Technovera, and I guess I started off my journey in the social entrepreneurship lens in 2014, Jan. It was actually on the 8th. I was diagnosed with TB, and it was somewhat of a shock. And I remember at that particular time when I had worked in a startup environment, a very, very small company looking at building innovations with dreams to revolutionize the online space and so on. And at the time, I realized when this doctor was telling me that, oh, snap, I actually don't know a lot about TB. And I know that I'm supposed to know a lot about it. I'm supposed to know that it is a very, very big deal. But I remember the one thing that he told me is like, actually, it's going to be a 6-month treatment, and in that treatment, you can't drink alcohol. And I remember seeing myself sort of thinking about, oh my God, it's going to be 6 months when you can't touch a bottle of Hunter's Dry. And and I think in that moment, I wasn't very much fazed by the actual disease itself. I wasn't very much fazed by, because you read a lot of narrative that tell you that, no, TB is curable, don't worry about it. As long as you stick to your treatment, you will cross that particular hurdle. And it is a reality for a lot of patients. But for me, one of the biggest, I guess, challenge that I started facing was when I started this course that's supposed to be a 6-month treatment cycle. And I was collecting my medication at a local clinic in Bophelong Township, which is where I stayed at that particular time. This is in the Vaal. And my narrative was very much of wanting to observe what's actually happening. And I was a very, very unhappy patient. And when I mean unhappy, I was one of those that when I get to the clinic, I'm already opening my mouth and I'm already going to talk about how the system is inefficient, how these doctors are these nurses are incompetent. There was a very strong degree of like entitlement and wanting everybody to hear my opinion because it is so beautiful and I think you need to actually hear me. And realizing that that is actually not doing anything. In fact, it's actually hurting me in the long run because you don't get to actually build good relationships. I still remember my nurse. I had a male nurse, very, very authoritative figure in my life. And he set a mission to set me in my place. You're going to be a problem patient, I am going to be a problem nurse. To a point where I even remember, I think it was my 3rd cycle when I was coming to the clinic to collect. Anybody who's ever been in a public clinic, when that door closes and they say tea break, and that tea break takes you a whole hour before they come back again. It was almost as if it was designed in such a way that by the time I get to the front, the tea break always hits me. And the nice part is that he'll open his door, he'll look, and when I'm there, there's a line of chairs, tea break. So that was my reality for a duration of 6 months. And I think to a large extent, I was somewhat privileged, and I'll use this word privileged in a couple of, as I talk. And my privilege was one of being a person that works in a small business that has high degree of flexibility and can afford to actually live down the 3 hours that you have to spend in a queue. But so in the Vaal, it's a very industrial area, and one of the things that is a very, very constant, I guess, image that you see is a guy in his PPE overalls going to work. So very, very strong industrial space with a lot of subcontractors. And I remember there was this one patient, Bro Isaac. His reality was one where he used to start taking, I guess he would take his lunch. He would skip his lunch on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and that becomes 2 hours effectively because he used to have 30 minutes. And you'd have the other 30 minutes. So you have 2.5 hours to go, get to the clinic, collect your medicine, and effectively leave. And consistently, I remember when he realizes that he's not going to make it back on time, he'll stand out and ask everybody in the queue that, guys, I've got a job, my boss is going to dock my pay, and I really need to get to the front. And without fail, everybody will always accept for Isaac to get to the front and for him to collect his medicine. And I had, a year before, I just finished a master's in industrial engineering, where my whole thesis focus was was focusing on debottlenecking processes within a manufacturing environment. And I effectively started thinking about the conversation about purpose, about like, what am I actually doing and what can I actually use in the skill set that I had. And I'll go back to that word of privilege, and I'm thinking about how we always think of privilege as things that belong to other people. We never check our own privilege. And in this case, I had gone on a whole journey of acquiring knowledge about how to remove bottlenecks in a system. And here I am in a queue looking at patients with one nurse at the front, and that nurse sometimes becomes a bottleneck. Anyway, started thinking about how can we actually use technology in this particular space, and how can we make sure that the solutions that we can actually present to the world can effectively solve. And I love the sentiment about not doing, I guess, small piece jobs that effectively help us with a way to solve a very micro problem, but thinking about a solution that can actually solve a problem for a lot of people. So in South Africa, we've got a very, very successful HIV program that we are all proud of, where we put a lot of people on ARV treatments. But some of the challenges is that we haven't increased the infrastructure that helps us serve those people. So you end up with a high volume of patients, but you end up with the same number of clinics, the same staffing, and you end up with long queues. So we set out to say, how can we effectively help this particular system that is riddled with these inefficiencies? So we came up with the concept of using smart lockers. So it's a set of these lockers that we put inside clinics, and we take pre-packed medicine, load it inside, it sends you an SMS saying, now your medication is ready for collection, here's a one-time PIN. The patient will effectively go to the unit, enter his cell phone number. The patient will effectively go to the clinic, enter his cell phone number together with his PIN. It opens a door that has his compartment. He picks up his medicine. He's on his way. Obviously, on the back of that, you start respecting all of the other systems that exist, needing to track which patients is taking what treatment. Are they taking it correctly? Are they coming to collect? And so on. Obviously, it only works for chronically stable patients, which means that you're on a chronic condition that you are taking on a repeat basis, and you know how to take that treatment you've been taking for a while. And we started looking at this part I started looking at this part and saying, here's a solution that I really think can work. When it was an idea, you start then thinking through all of the hurdles. And obviously the first hurdle was my nurse, who's now my first champion, effectively, who then started saying, actually, I like the fact that you've changed your tune. You're starting to come up with a solution that can help me and that can help people. We went on a whole journey of the cycle of thinking about like, oh my God, it's going to be a multi-million rand business. I'm going to be wealthy and all these other narratives. But the true test was in convincing the one stakeholder, the biggest stakeholder that controls how healthcare is governed in the state, which is the National Department of Health. My journey started with knocking off in doors in municipalities. I started in Fuleni, Ekurhuleni, City of Johannesburg, and City of Tshwane. And I mean, I'm not going to talk about the narrative of being an entrepreneur. You brace yourself for the acceptance of what a no means, and then saying you still need to persevere through it. I remember getting to a point where I was then presenting in City of Tshwane, and somebody said, that's never going to work. You don't understand. First of all, you're an engineer. You don't understand how medicine works and all of these narratives. But what I've always appreciated is that our ability to pay attention to what people are saying and then thinking about how do you effectively give this person a solution, despite the fact that it looks like they're criticizing you, despite the fact that it looks like they're saying no, how do you make sure that you can open that conversation? City of Tshwane gave us a maybe. And that maybe gave us a lot of homework to go do. So they were saying, first of all, you don't understand what Pharmacy Council is going to require. This is Schedule 6 medicine. It's highly regulated, and so on. So we went on a whole journey of saying, how do we build all of these regulatory compliance that are required? And this journey took me about, 2 years and a bit of my life. And this is very much one of, again, that intersection of perseverance, purpose, and what you are skilled at and what you can do. And I particularly find myself living that on a daily basis and starting to ask myself, okay, here I am observing something that people might not see in a particular way. So 2 days ago, I was in Geneva at the Global Fund, effectively looking at how we can scale this technology. And on my last night in Zurich, I was walking in this one street that's somewhat famous and popular. And I saw this one guy, he has this little device on the back of a truck, and he's literally just like doing this motion as he walks next to the truck. And I was so fascinated, like, what is this guy doing? And my mind kicked in terms of, okay, so he's got some form of technology, and what is he actually doing with it? So it was a logistics truck, and what he's effectively doing is that he's doing inventory management, or he's doing stock take of this truck as the truck is standing there, and it's about to go offload merchandise into a Zara store. And I quickly take a picture of this, and I send it to my girlfriend, and so she looks at it, and she's like, that's just a picture of a random guy with something next to a truck. I don't understand what's going on. And I was so excited. And in my excitement, I was picking up that here's a device that effectively can link to tags within this truck that gives you a way for you to measure the inventory within that truck in less than 30 seconds. And I was thinking back to the clinics that we operate in. One of the biggest things that we struggle is medication stockouts, where you'll get there and they'll tell you that the medicine is not there and it's finished. And when we do stockouts, you have to do a whole count of what is there. And you find yourself closing half a day and telling people that they need to go away because you're doing at the pharmacy, because we control it, we're doing the stock take. And I kept on thinking to myself, out of all of this access to medicine problem, of all of these things that we highlight that we're always running out of medicine, here's something which is a solution. And I love that conversation about knowing your privilege and knowing your skills and understanding what you see and how you can contextualize it in the environment in which you operate in. And I think Tumi talked about how travel sometimes opens different opportunities. And I was thinking to myself, here's a night where, I wanted to go shopping, but Zurich is expensive. And here's a night where you're seeing something, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, when I get home, here's another innovative idea that I really want to pitch to the Department of Health about how we can make sure that we have a real-life feed of what is actually in our shelves for us to make sure that we don't chase people away when we don't have the right medicine on the right table. And I guess for me, one of the very, very strong theme that has been quite resonating with me very, very strongly is starting to focus on how are you effectively living out what you are good at, and how you're opening your mind and your eyes continuously to see what you only can see, the gifts that you only have, in such a way that when you start to really tap into those, they start to unlock so many other opportunities that might not be seen. I'll bet that the guy who probably was thinking of the stock inventory system was not thinking about it being used for medicine in a township clinic, and how the clinic sometimes has to close a little bit early because we want to be able to do this. And then starting to say, actually, my privilege is an ability to be able to have that one foot into a public healthcare system and have the other foot into what technology can really enable for us to really build out systems that can work for us. And I think for me, this narrative, I was talking to a friend of mine in Dumeling now about how when you come into particular spaces, you want to be able to think about what is the lens that you bring into the space and how do you authentically share it with other people. I remember when we were starting to think about how the solution can work, one of the things that we were doing, and again, as a practitioner, maybe in the social impact space, you're always thinking about how do you take in the voice of the people that you, I hate this word beneficiary, I think there has to be another better word. How can you take the voice of the people that you are cultivating or building a solution with, and make sure that that voice is at the center of what you do? And I think it's nice to talk about like the fancy things and the fancy concepts, but I remember being challenged. This was a solution that only came up with a lot of voices that helped feed what it can really live out to be. And I remember my first gut feel was, what if you actually walk to a machine and you just open your eye, iris scan, door open, collect, and you're on your way? And I think I was so authentic in my voice that was the initial version of the solution that I presented to the first group of patients that we were engaging with. And there's this one guy, he's like, Emunanel, don't you understand, Hutiri? Like, you're asking me to open my eye to something, and I don't know what's going to happen here. Mfana, you're losing it. You're losing track. And we even, I remember when we were designing, and this one lady was saying that, actually, you're telling me that you want me to put my finger on, biometrics is quite popular, right? And you want me to put my finger over here, and the door opens. And do you understand that there's 100 other sick people who've gone to touch that thing? And I think in that moment, when the penny drops, here's somebody who's telling you that I actually don't consider myself as a patient. I consider myself as somebody who's sick who happens to get medicine. But the other people are sick. And I don't want to touch something that they're touching. And I think for me, that realization that as a designer, as an innovator, as somebody who is out to come up with something, you need to build that authenticity to really listen to what people are telling you. And I had this one urge where I wanted to say it to her, but my sister, don't you understand that if you're going to touch a screen, the same people have touched it? And I needed to quieten that up until somebody else said it, and I was so happy. And then she was like, no, you don't understand, it's a bigger screen. So at least I'm not going to catch all of that. And I think for me, my message for the day is very much one of how do we check our privileges, which can be skills, and how do we make sure that we channel that inner voice to authentically build solutions with people and make sure that we end up with something that works for us. Thank you very much.